In this video, I'll be going through the basics of setting up the Marquis Workspace Tool system to allow us to perform backups of Avid workspaces to the Wasabi cloud storage. So the first thing I'll do on my machine is take the installer package that we're releasing, and we'll extract the zip file just to the local location, and within here we'll find our installer. We'll run the installer, and it's a very simple installer, just a couple of options to choose. So the first thing we'll do is look to install the Workspace Tools application. We also get a chance to install the Project Restore and Workspace Restore applications, which are separate apps allowing you to get content back from your backup. These are the ones that would normally allow you to install on any other location to get your content back from the backup we've created, and those are freely installable as often as you want. In this case, we'll install them on this machine, and we'll also choose to install the Amazon S3 support, which is the same protocol as used by Wasabi, and we'll leave the other settings deselected, and we'll go through and complete the installation. Okay, that's completed, so we'll finish that. Now, Workspace Tools is a Windows service. It gets installed onto the machine and runs in the background. It comes with a configuration tool, set it up, and then everything else is done through web pages. So first off, we'll come and look at the configuration tool, and that will be in our Marquis Workspace Tools section. And here we find those two sub-applications that I mentioned, and our configuration tool. So because the service is running via web pages, we have a web server, which is serving up the pages, and we have the actual service that's running itself. And this is automatically set to run on start, so these are already in and running. And we'll see here we have our Workspace Tools pages. Now we have two forms of pages. We have an administrator's page and a users only page. And if we turn on security settings on the admin page, that can lock out people from getting into the details. In this case, we'll come to the admin and we'll hit launch to open up the page. And here we have the web page from our Workspace Tools. Now the first thing we need to do to get it running is to license the product. At the moment we're complaining there's no license, and we can sort this out by coming to our configuration, go to our license section at the bottom, and this will show me the details that we need to generate a license. So everything's generated and locked to the host ID of the local machine, and in this case we have this 8-character host ID. If you send that through to us, we'll be able to generate a license, and we'll send that back to you. And that can just then be imported by clicking on the Select New License button, and we'll come through to wherever you've copied your local that license onto your local machine. In this case, this is in my shared folder, and here we have our license file. So this will come through normally in an email. You copy that onto your local machine, select it and open it, and we'll bring that into the machine, and we now see that we have Workspace Tools for backup configured, and this is an evaluation license. So now my application is fully licensed. I'll be able to show you everything that we've got here. So from the home page, we have the basic information. So we now know my product is licensed. We've no configuration at the moment, but we'll come through and add that. And then this screen will also show us the basic status of the system, whether it's online, how many jobs we've got pending, and how many active jobs we've got. In the schedule page, this is where we'll build up the list of jobs we'll be doing. So we'll put our backup jobs in here. When anything's active, it comes into the activity tab, and you'll see the progress of the job in terms of the summary detail and the more detailed console information. And then we'll actually build up a history of the jobs that have happened previously on this machine. So you can always go back and see what's happened in the past. But the first thing I'm going to have to do for this machine to do any job is to configure that backup location, so where we're going to put the content. In this case, we're going to go to Wasabi. So I'll come through, I'll choose my archive location, I'll choose the add, I'm going to choose the S3 option for the compatible AWS storage, in which case this is going to be Wasabi. And we'll see the details that we're going to be putting in. Now the first one, the connection name, is just a descriptive name. And then we have to start putting the detailed configuration in. Now the URL, is the actual connection we'll make into the Wasabi storage. The region is something that's only really used for AWS, so we won't set that in this case. And then we have the IDs that will give us access into the storage. Encryption, again, is an option for AWS only, so we'll step over that. And we'll put in the bucket name of where we're going to put the content. So if I actually come in and switch to my Wasabi account, at the moment I've got a couple of buckets configured, so we'll use one of those. So we'll be coming into my Workspace Tools 2 bucket, which is currently empty. And this is in the region US West 1. And we need to remember that because we'll use that within the URL that we're going to be putting in. So that first thing we'll do is go to get the connection into the Wasabi storage, making use of that region. So I'll come back to my Workspace Tools, and the URL will always be in this form. So we have HTTPS, and we're going to go for S3, full stop, and then we put in the details of that region that the bucket is held within. In this case, US West 1, and then .wasabisys.com. That allows us to connect into the online storage, and now I put in the 2 access IDs. Come back to my Wasabi to generate those. And we'll create a new access key. And we'll just go through and create. And to make sure I have a record, I'll download that as a CSV. Let's just open that up. Now that contains my access key and my secret key, which I will put off screen for the moment. And if I come back to Workspace Tools, we can put those in to the configuration. So I'll copy the access key and paste it in here. And then we'll do the same for the secret key. Okay, so that gives me my access rights. And the last thing I need to do is put the buckets information in. So I was going to use one of the buckets we've already configured. So we'll come through into the MQ Workspace Tools number 2. And we'll submit to save the changes. So I have a backup location configured, which will go through to my Wasabi storage. So to test that out, let's just set up a simple job, which will copy some files up to the Wasabi storage and make sure all the connections and the settings are correct. And before that, we'll just check the performance settings I've got set. And within my configuration and my advanced, I can see the number of files I'm set to use simultaneously when going up into the cloud. This defaults to 1. In this case, let's go for something a bit more realistic, and we'll go for 8 and submit that to save the change. And now if I come back to my schedule, we'll build up a job just to run the test. So I'll add a backup job. In this case, I'll just pick a USB drive that I've got plugged in, which has a set of files on it, and we'll include that in my backup job. I don't need to worry about my other settings yet. We can leave these as a default. My destination for this will be my Wasabi storage. And my timing. Normally we could schedule this to happen at any time or at any particular repeat pattern. We'll take the default for now because I'll override that and run it manually. So I have my job set. It's going to go from my local USB drive to the Wasabi storage into my Workspace Tools number 2 bucket. And we'll hit the run now to set that going immediately. As soon as I hit the run now, the job will be sent across into my activity pane. And we'll see the job within the job list. Details within the activity will show the setup of the job and the progress of the job. And the details in the console below will show everything that's going through. So I can see my job is initializing. Details will come down into my console, but all the summary will be up in here in my activity. And we'll go through, check what we need to transfer, and eventually start the process to push things up into the cloud storage. So we can see now that we're finding the files and we're starting to push them up into the cloud. In this case, the USB drive contains a simple set of Avid media files within a standard folder structure, together with a couple of other document files. But at this point, we're not doing any of the project cross-checking or the project awareness that we'll show within the backup. This is just a simple test. So that job is now completed, so we know that the basic configuration is correct and we have the rights to get content up into Wasabi. To make this a more realistic test, then we'd also want to make sure we enable the project aware part of the backup job. And this is where, when we're going through the workspace, looking for any media files, if we find Avid media files, we'll cross-check them against the projects in the system, and we'll archive any project files that we find that are relevant to that content. So your backup will now be your workspace and the content on the workspace, but also the projects referencing the media on that workspace. And we actually also go through and check to see if those projects are referencing any content in any other locations, and we'll include those in the backup as well. So your backup ends up being completely project aware, and those projects themselves are all complete as well. Now we enable this by coming into my configuration and setting project locations to point at the places where my project files are. Now in this case, I have a couple of locations for my project files. So I know that I have my project files within my standard Avid structures. So within my public user and my public documents, I have my shared Avid projects. So I can add that in by putting my path into here and detailing what it is. And I have a second location of local non-shared projects, which are held in here. So we'll add that location in. And we'll submit to make sure that's saved. And the next thing I want to do is put in my actual workspace, which I'll be taking into the job. In this case, as I'm running locally, I'll put that in manually. And I'm coming still into a network share, which happens to be into this machine path. So let's copy that and add it into my configuration. There we go. And we'll submit that to save it. So now we'll set up a job. And we'll come through into my schedule. Let's do a new backup job. In this case, we'll use my workspace. Again, coming into my Wasabi storage. This time we'll set it on a repeat pattern, so we'll do this every day. We'll set it going in the evening, and submitting adds it into my schedule. So it hasn't started the jobs yet. Here's my new job. It's due to go at 9 o'clock tonight, but we'll start it to go immediately, and off it goes. Now the details of the job are still very much the same as we saw previously, but now we have the extra step where we'll go through and do a storage analysis, where we'll look at the workspace, and we'll look at the configured project files and try to do a match between the content on the workspaces and any active projects that we find. Then if we find those projects, we'll include those in the backup as well. Once we've done the analysis, we'll start doing that backup and start copying the files. Within this job, any media files we're finding are going up into the Wasabi storage, and they're going in a standard Avid folder structure, so it'll be recognisable when we come to look at the actual storage. We're capturing the project files, and we're capturing everything else that's on the workspace as well. And so that job is now completed. So we've pushed up the media files, the project files, and anything else that happens to be on that workspace up into Wasabi. And we get the review at the bottom of exactly what we've worked on. Now obviously the first time we run a backup job, it could take quite a long time because it could be a lot of content to push up there. Obviously then also, when we do the subsequent jobs, we're only going to be working with the deltas of what has changed for that workspace. So any subsequent jobs will go through a lot faster. But each time we run those extra jobs, we'll also recheck the project files and take a new snapshot, a new version of those project files. So if I was to run that job again immediately, we'll go through the same process, we'll analyze everything, work out what the relationship is between the media and the project files, we'll check to see if there's anything new that needs to go up, but we'll actually find that the media files are the same as they were previously, so they won't need to be archived. All we'll need to do is take up that new version of those project files. So this job flows through a lot quicker and has actually completed already. One piece of advice for the building of those backup jobs: we can add in multiple workspaces if we want. Now obviously I just showed a single workspace previously, but we can add them all in and put them into the same job. And when we go through that job, the first stage we do is the storage analysis. If I'm putting multiple workspaces in the same job, Then we'll go through and use that analysis and process all of the workspaces based on that information. If I put those workspaces through as individual jobs, then they would each have their storage analysis phase. So it can be a bit quicker to put multiple workspaces into a single job and share out that analysis so everything uses the analysis taken at the start of the job. Now if I come and have a look at my Wasabi storage, we'll find that we've created a Workspace Backup. Within here we've created all of the information from that backup. So we've created the media files, which is the Avid media files, got the project files, and we've got everything else that we found on the workspace. Now for Workspace Tools, we can keep setting these backup jobs, we can set that repeat pattern, and we can make sure that the system is protected. The other option we have in terms of managing that backup is to run a periodic tidy job. Now the tidy job is just set against the chosen destination, and we set the period that we want to do it, let's say potentially once a week. In this case we'll set it to go on a Sunday. And this is where we set the retention period. And this is the number of days that we will keep content in the backup after we have seen that it has been deleted from the source device. In this case, once content has been deleted for more than 10 days, it will get deleted from the backup. And that applies to all of the files and all the media files, and even any projects data beyond that 10-day retention period. The important part to note with the tidy job is we start that counter of how long files have been deleted from the point at which a tidy job sees the files have gone. So when a tidy job sees that files have been deleted from the source, it starts off an internal counter where it will count off the retention period before deleting the content. But that's scheduled now, and that would go through at a weekly basis and clean up my backup. Now I want to see what's there and give you some options for getting that content back. And when we did the original install, we installed the two applications that can help you do that. So within my Workspace Tools folder, we will find the Project Restore and the Workspace Restore. Now the Workspace Restore allows us to bring the entire workspace back, and the Project Restore allows us to work on an individual project or an individual bin level. So we'll open Project Restore first. So the Project Restore application is freely usable. It comes unlicensed and can be installed on any machine that you wish to have it on to allow you to get in and have that restore capability. So in the event of a failure, you can always bring projects back from your backup to a new machine or a new laptop to get yourself back up and running again. So the first thing we'll have to do is tell it where my Wasabi storage is to go and get the backup. So I'll add that into the configuration now. The details are the same as we're entering into the Workspace Backup configuration. So the URL is the same, as are the access ID and secret IDs. Again, we don't use the encryption, so we can do without that. And then we can hit refresh, where we'll actually pull back the bugs that are available from that location. In this case, we're using number 2. Now that's set, I can come and look at my Archive and Restore tab, and we'll see my connection into the Wasabi storage. This is showing us my Workspace Backup folder, and within here, we'll actually see the structures for the project locations for where we found projects within that storage. Now these projects that we've taken are the projects that were referencing media on that original workspace that we have backed up. It's not a complete set of the projects in these locations, it's just the projects that are valid and useful for the material on the workspace. And because I did 2 versions of the backup job, if I select a project, we'll see we have 2 versions of the project files. Now before I can bring any content back, I just need to make sure my application knows where I want to put the projects on my local machine. So I come into my configuration, into my project locations, we'll add a location, and from here we can browse through, and let's find a new location for these. So that's where we'll restore any project files to. To actually do a restore, I'll pick a project, pick a version, in which case we'll go for the last one, hit restore, and we'll now see the contents of that project. So I can see the bins that we have available in that project. And I can restore everything or just an individual bin. And then we can choose where we'll bring the project files back to. So in this case, come to my new location, and we'll restore the project and the bins back to that location. And then we can choose what to do with the media files. Now by default, we'll have tracked the location of the media files from their original workspaces, but we'll allow you to remap those to workspaces and locations that are relevant to my local machine. So in this case, I'm just coming back to a laptop, so I just have my C drive. If I do my restore now, we'll bring the contents back to an Avid media files folder within that C drive. And it's as simple as that. we'll go through, we'll read the content, we'll be pulling it back down from Wasabi and putting it into my local folders. Again, we'll see the progress coming through and show you when it's completed, and that's completed. So that's how easy it is to bring a project back from your Workspace Backup. And as I mentioned, Project Restore can be installed on multiple locations as you needed, so you can get the content back into the important locations. If I'm looking to restore the entire workspace, then I'll use my Workspace Restore application. This can also be installed in multiple locations and is freely licensed for use. Again, we need to configure it to point into my storage. So I come to my archive locations, and we'll go through the same set of details as we did for the other products. And again, we can refresh to pull back the buckets. And doing the restore is really as simple as hitting the restore button. In this case, we'll go through and we'll find the backup location that we've just configured, and we'll scan to find the different workspaces that are mounted on this local machine. So we know we're pulling from the Wasabi backup, and we found the original workspaces that content came from. Now this is because I did my original backup referencing projects which also pulled media from other locations. So even though my backup was from one location, it's pulled content from other workspaces to make sure that those projects are complete. Now because I'm coming back to a new location, I can remap these to go to individual workspaces, or I could actually choose to exclude them from this job and just bring back an individual workspace. So I have full mapping control on how I want to work with this. In this case, we'll actually exclude those and just restore an individual workspace. Now we're getting a warning about my drive not being empty. This is because the first thing we'll do is check to see whether we're bringing content back to a completely empty workspace, so we're doing a full restore to a new location. That doesn't have to be the case. We could actually bring that workspace back onto an existing location which has content inside it. In which case we'll go through and check. We won't restore files that are already there, but we will restore files that have gone. So if something has been accidentally deleted, we can have the chance to bring things back from the workspace and tidy that up. I won't start the job in this instance because I'm still running from the same machine. And that completes this demonstration. Please contact us if you have any questions or would like any more details. Thank you.